Taiwo, and the option I'm proposing is that we use ethanol produced from waste plant material to generate electricity. Shock. And the heat of the crisis between Israel and the Arab nations in 1973, of course, the US threw their weight heavily behind Israel. When President Richard Nixon was asked if he thought the Arab nations would place an embargo on the US, he said, well, the Arab nations would not think of that because there will be no market for their oil. Of course, we all know they did, and the remaining is now history. Imagine you woke up tomorrow morning, you tuned to BBC, and you heard that due to the heightened tensions between UK and Iran, some nations have come together to place an embargo on the UK. The first question you think of asking is, how much do we depend on these external sources for our energy? The answer will obviously shock you. Looking at this, we see that so much of the energy being used in the UK presently is obtained from external sources. You see uranium for nuclear, you see coal, and you see natural gas, which will come to about 69% in about 20 years' time. It brings us to the question, how secure is the United Kingdom, and of course, by implication, the Northeast, energy-wise. Energy security can be talked about when we say the energy sources, one, they should be widely affordable, two, they should be evenly distributed, three, they should be affordable, then also they must be produced on a sustainable basis in an environment-friendly manner. It brings us to the issue of ethanol from waste plants. Hitherto, when we talk of ethanol as a source of fuel, it brings some sort of maybe shock or how do we produce ethanol from food crops like corn. But presently, technology has been so developed such that this ethanol can be obtained from waste plant materials like wheat straw, corn stover, or rice straw. It may interest you to know that the UK presently produces between 7 to 10 million metric tons of surplus wheat straw. That is wheat straw which is not dedicated for any specific purpose. Just before this presentation, I was discussing with somebody here who said at a point in time, the farmers were paying people to help them dispose of their excess wheat straw. So we see that now we can produce ethanol from this material which costs little or nothing. And we also see that however we choose to use this ethanol is going to be very environment friendly, because the CO2 that comes from it obviously will be reabsorbed again by the plant which is grown. So we see energy security coming in here, because when we use ethanol, when we use the wheat straw or other waste materials, we will not need to depend on external countries for their supply. Now, a combination of this renewable and sustainable energy source of ethanol with the ethanol fuel cell seems to me to be the ideal perfect match for energy supply. A fuel cell is an electrochemical device that takes in a fuel and converts the chemical energy in that fuel directly into electrical energy. The fuel in this case can be ethanol. Ethanol comes in with water. This is the anode. That is the cathode. Of course, the hydrogen in the ethanol is extracted and broken down into a proton and an electron. The electron goes into the circuit to produce energy. The proton travels to the cathode, recombines with oxygen and the electron to form water, and by so doing we have a continuous supply of electricity. It's worth noting that there are two different ways by which ethanol can be used to produce electricity from the fuel cell. One, of course, is to feed it indirectly And the other option is to reform the ethanol, produce hydrogen, then feed it into the fuel cell. This way, we are going to have energy supply that is predictable. Predictable because it is available 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week, and all through the year. We are also going to have a supply that is secured. Secured because it is within our reach, is within our control. The mix I'm proposing is this. Sorry, the points there are too small. 30% from biofuel. 30% because this ethanol can not only be produced from waste plant materials, it can also be produced from what we refer to as energy crops. Energy crops, they are like switchgrass, which you can grow on very low quality land and afterwards convert into ethanol. So 30 for the biofuels, then we have about 15 for the wind and solar, about 13, and the others. Thank you very much.
Again, I'll just take one question. Do we have any questions? Yeah.
Hi. With this sort of reaction, I would assume that the reaction would produce heat as well. So why only looking at electricity?
Yes, thank you very much. That is the other bright side of a fuel cell. You can have a combined heat and power production, which increases the efficiency.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've